Come on, internet. There we go. Melanated family. Let me clear my throat. You feel me? We back at it. The Thursday show on Friday. You heard me yesterday. You know what I mean? Me and my sister doing this on Friday. Normally it's Thursday at 7. Today it's Friday at 7. Welcome everybody to a brand new episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. This is the later in the week version where me and my sister come to this show, and all we do, family, is talk about different news stories affecting our people, right? How we feel about these news stories, how these things can affect our children. Because sometimes we have fun and we laugh and we dissect what happened, but a lot of this shit be happening to our babies. So it's important as adults we take this serious,
Yeah.
and really give people information they can use about all this. So thank you very much for tuning into another episode. I'm your brother Harrison. Please subscribe to the Melanated Convo. Melanated Convo on YouTube. The digital platform is the Melanated Convo podcast, is where you can find the show on Overcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all these places. And on the show, like I said, my sister Sonia, who has a business called Ascribe Educational Consulting. If your business doesn't understand racial dynamics, which most businesses don't,
Right.
if you don't understand racial dynamics, her company will come in and give you a great perspective. Everybody, welcome. This is the Sonia Williams Lewis to the show. What's up, Sonia?
Thank you. It's all good in the hood. You know, I think that we always have to give ourselves grace. And one of the lessons that I learned from growing up as a child is a closed mouth don't get fed. And so, yes, it's Friday, and we normally get together on Thursday. But when life happens, you got to be honest and transparent with yourself as to where your capacity is. So I'm glad that we were able to reschedule for today and always be on point for what we do and having these important conversations.
And like my homeboy, I interviewed on my show some months ago. He does these skits online, and he was like, "You ever realize sometimes life be lifing?" I was like, "Ooh, that's hard right there. That's hard because that's what happens. Like the most honest people, the most dedicated people. Sometimes some shit happen where you know what I mean."
And then they don't give themselves grace. And I'm really very intentional at this stage in my life that not only do I want to temperature check my capacity on where I am on any given day, at any given time of the day, because it can fluctuate, right? But I also want to be honest about how that also impacts other people. And so my grandmother used to say all the time, so I was a very shy kid, and people still to this day be like, you couldn't have been shy. I'm not shy in the sense of afraid of talking to other people and things like that, but very much an observant introvert who has mastered being an extrovert. Like if I had a choice, I'd be on a beach somewhere just watching people. Like I ain't got to say nothing to nobody. We ain't got to have none of that. But I like my space and my independence. And with that being said, as a kid, she recognized that. And she would be like, when I would go and visit, my parents were separated. And so when I would go and visit her, she would say, you need anything, baby? I'd be like, no, ma'am. No. And she'd be like, a closed mouth don't get fed. And I didn't know what that meant. And basically she was trying to, check me and be like, do you need food? Do you need, what do you need? And later in life, I appreciated knowing that lesson because it gave me permission to be honest with myself while I'm being honest with others.
Definitely. So this week's topics, we finna get into it right now. Sonia, like we was talking about before the show, let's get right into it, man. So the family of a teen, 19-year-old brother, the family of a teen whose naked body was discovered in Livingston, Montana, in a field off Highway 89 at the beginning of February, says law enforcement is not working hard to uncover the truth about the death of their loved one. This young brother name was Jalen Williams, who was a native of Evanston, Illinois. He was found dead on February 10th near his girlfriend's house. Authorities say he froze to death. However, the 19-year-old's family suspects foul play. Now, he moved to Montana for like a job or something like that. He had a girlfriend, these type of things. Sonia, I also read another report that mentioned how the brother may have had some mental issues where people seen him walking naked on the highway. So I don't know if it was foul play for sure in this incident, but this is a young brother's life lost, Sonia. So when you seen this story and the breakdown of how everything took place, what were you thinking?
One of the things that I just first, before going into all that, when I read the story, I was like, it's a shame. You know how we have to have the talk with our babies to prepare them for this life when it being a Black person and encounters potentially with law enforcement. We also have to be aware that people in community are not going to treat us equal. So it's not just law enforcement, right? It's any community. And so I just like to, give that verbal warning to folks. All communities ain't equal in the sense of you can't just up and move to a state that has less than X percent, let's just say less than 5% Black folks. And some and Wisconsin, I would definitely say is probably less than 1%. White Black folks. And so that's the first thing that ran into my mind was like, why the hell did he decide that this is the place, moving to Montana, that he ended up there and then ended up in this situation. So that was the first thing. But secondarily, of course, people, if they don't know something and they don't know you and they're not familiar with you, and especially if you're not that token Negro that they can vouch for, all kind of narratives can spring up as to the what, the why, the who, and the when, right? And so now you have a young 19-year-old, and I can't imagine his family and what they're going through, knowing that, at 19, that naked and froze to death. Like,
naked and froze to death. Yep, hypothermia is what they said happened, and it's difficult for me at times because the family is screaming foul play, right? There are reports that show the brother was walking naked. Family is saying, well, hey, he had scrapes on his body. It looks like some type of trauma. Now, let's keep it real. If you're naked and you walking and falling around, that can produce some of that trauma. But here's the issue, white folks. We are very untrusting of your neighborhoods and your state of mind. See? So it's always going to be easy for somebody in our community to say, wait a minute, yeah, my son was doing whatever, or he had problems or whatever. But we don't trust people, man. And this is, so I'm always going to give Black families grace. Even if there was no foul play in this situation, we are suspecting foul play because there always is, man. If there's a neighborhood or a community where it's all white, Montana, I think it's like 90-something%. The town he was in is 8,000 people, 90-something% white. You guys do shit to us and cover it up.
Yes.
So yeah, maybe sometime we come out and say, well, hey, this happened and it didn't possibly, but we don't trust y'all. You know what I mean, Sonia?
It reminds me of a case several years ago. Young Black boy. He had befriended some people on social media. He was going to community college out in Roseville and had driven his car to the friend's house. Come to find out, he meets the girl and everything. And she says that, I'm not a racist, but my dad is. And you can't come around when my dad is around. And he's an ex-cop and all this stuff. And the way they spun this story was just so crazy. Like the things that they were saying about this kid was unbelievable. Had never been in trouble with the law, had never been suspended from school, was doing very well. Did he have some mental challenges? Yes, like documented. But he was never like violent and off the Richter scale of doing things to harm self or to harm others. He was just one of those very reserved people who didn't get social clues. So he may have been a little autistic. And his interactions with people spoke to him not being socially aware of how to interact with people. With all that being said, he didn't deserve to be in his vehicle, no weapon, and shot through the window and killed by 3 police officers. And so, I can remember going out, getting a team together, and particularly using white allies or non-Black allies to do some canvassing of the neighborhood and asking them questions. What did you see and hear on this date? Had you ever seen this kid in the neighborhood? And because this cop and this family lived where they lived and was an influence in the community, they were able to get to the community where nobody ever came forward and said anything until years later. Now we're talking, this was probably about 5 years ago. And we go out and do a candlelight vigil every year in that neighborhood right in front of the house. And they hate to see us coming.
I
And
bet.
I mean, it's Trumpville, and sometimes they show up with the big flags and you know, all the hate and vitriol that you can think of. But that's what you know, the triggering of reading this story about this young man, that's what came to mind for me, because there was social media proof that he and the daughter in that house had some kind of relationship. At what level? You know, it wasn't like they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but they had been communicating, and he had been to her house before. So that leads me to, like, a skeptic Black person, like, why was he there?
Yeah. And it's
like,
and sometimes, like, we see a lot of incidents where our brothers, people in general who are dealing with mental illness, right? And cops show up, authority figures show up. They're not equipped to deal with people who are dealing with this, with these type of ailments. So they may confuse it for like a violent threat, when that may not be the case at all. So everybody tuning into the show, we're talking about a young brother named Jalen Williams, who was found dead in Montana. He's from Illinois. He went to Montana to work and kind of better his life, as his family is saying. The brother was found dead and naked, face down, right? And his family has questions. So we always have to be cognizant of that point. Like your mama know you.
Right.
You and I think,
yeah, absolutely. And I think that if we as a community who is concerned about humanity, I think that we can intelligently construct some policies and practices that, in any case, that there's a protocol, there's a XYZ that we got to get to, right? Let's do ABC, let's do 1, 2, 3, let's get to XYZ, right? And then be transparent with that information to give over to family members in a timely manner, instead of stringing folks along so that they can be more emotionally hurt by the lack of answers. And so I think when we get to that place, when we're talking about police investigations, when we're talking about our loved ones being harmed in community or not, if this was the case, you know, we don't know. We won't know for a while, probably, because it's not going to be a priority in a place like this where there are very little of us. And so that's the unfortunate part about it as well. So I'm always thinking outside of the box, in the sense of, how can we help a family who is not from this area feel a little bit more satisfaction about how we're investigating this case. And so I'm saying that if we have some kind of national effort, that this is the protocol when dealing with and investigating cases like this, this might take away some of that fear, some of that disbelief and lack of trust that Black folks have in community when it comes to white folks investigating what happened to us.
Yeah,
we know that there's a history, and the history can't be erased. So now that we know that there's a history that cannot be erased, we have to address it by being more proactive and upfront and transparent and accountable to the very people who have been harmed the most in this country.
And they're not transparent enough, because the uncle was coming out and saying, like, hey, you know, we seen his body and we think there's some foul play, but the detectives ain't really talking to us.
Right.
The detectives is shunning us and making us feel like something bigger could have happened. So every time incidents like this take place, as Black folks, we should look at it. Yeah, sometimes we be on certain things and we end up dying, we end up getting hurt, and it's not by nobody else's hands, but we would be fools not to consider who the culprit is when we've been wronged so many times. And like you just mentioned, Sonia, sometimes we don't say nothing.
Yes.
We don't want to investigate it. And your son, your daughter, your brother, your mama could have been hurt by somebody outside of your community, and they covering it up, and you're not doing your due diligence in fighting. So many of these incidences where it actually is somebody hurting us. The mom, the father, the family who say, no, I'm going to go to the Supreme Court. I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to go to the news. This is how shit gets solved for us. Now, this is unfortunate. because it should just be a thorough case and whoever did it get charged.
Right.
That don't happen a lot.
No, not at all. And especially, and it also, now that you mentioned that, it's reminding me, I don't know if you've seen or heard of the man who killed his wife and his son.
I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that.
Family, like 4 or 5 generations back, being, just big, powerful, rich family that has control not only the police department, the sheriff, the judges, the lawyer, everybody in their community. And when every time that their kids got in trouble, some kind of way the trouble disappeared. Right. And so it wasn't until a little white girl in community, one of the boy's girlfriend, one of the friends' girlfriends, was killed in an accidental boating accident where he was drunk, beyond drunk. And then later on, because the son discovered some things about dad, he ended up murdering his wife and his son. But yeah, these kind of incidences not only happen to us, but they get off the hook for things that they do to them and everybody else, especially if you are a person who's in a position of power in any given town. And so when I'm looking at this article, 0.5% Black in this city. 8,000 population, 8,386, 96% white, but only 0.5% Black, according to. So I still have to go back to my original statement. And I understand getting away from and starting new and all of those kind of things. But those kind of numbers have to be a part of the equation of why we decide to go places. And I'm sorry, I just think that, family members should have had a more heart-to-heart conversation with that young man at 19 to be okay with him going to a place like that, because to me that screams danger. It screams danger. I can remember one of my boys was accepted and invited to wrestle on the state national, go to nationals and represent the state of California. And nationals is always in Iowa City, Iowa. And the first thing that I did when I looked up the demographics and, what does Black representation look like in Iowa City, Iowa, who, by the way, had a Black mayor when we were there. And I looked up the numbers. It was like these numbers, point something percent. And I said, oh, no, mommy got to go with you. Mommy or somebody got to go with you. But I'm not sending my baby to a place. No.
See? And we need to be cognizant of that. And that's why we do shows like this. That's why we do this show, family. So you don't have to wear it on your chest as far as how you feel about other races, but being aware, strategizing, looking at the past and how things have happened, just be alert. And put your kids on alert so they can be aware and they can end up going to this environment and just move differently. See, they'll know, okay, I'm here. I'm amongst all these people that don't look like me. Let me just not do that. Let me just not do that. So awareness at times can keep you alive, but it also starts with parents making you aware.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Okay. So RIP to that young brother, 19-year-old Jalen Williams died in that manner. That's just horrible, especially for his parents, his family. And what I learned about death by family having a funeral home, it's so unfinal sometimes. Like when there's these different things that could have happened, somebody saying it happened this way, somebody saying they went to meet a friend, you never get to the bottom of it because you can't speak to the person that it happened to. So RIP to that brother. Now, Sonia, these are the type of stories I love to bring to your attention, right?
Yeah.
So let me read a little bit of this because this is in your wheelhouse here. So a Texas mother is upset because, let me see here. So a Texas mother is upset. She's furious after her son claimed his 4th grade teacher taped him to a chair during class and allowed students to ridicule him. Now, the suburban Dallas school district, of course, said it's investigating the incident, but there are two sides to every story, whatever the hell that means in this situation. On Wednesday, February 22nd, Charlotte Johnson's 10-year-old son, Zai, was allegedly taped to a chair during class by a teacher at Crosby Elementary School in Forney, Texas. This is based on NBC News reports. And Sonia, she talked to the school. The school said, wait, Yeah, he was taped to a chair. Let's investigate it. Supposedly, she taped him to the chair, and while he was taped to the chair, other kids were allowed to ridicule him. She had children help her tape
Wow.
this 10-year-old boy to a chair. And just to give more context, his mother said that he suffers from dwarfism, just like being a little person and all the ailments that come with that, Sonia. So being a being a teacher previously, how do you look at incidents like this?
Yeah, I struggle with adults who should understand the dynamics of children being children, and I extra struggle when we're talking about elementary level, right? Because 9 times out of 10, there are not many elementary kids that are going to be bigger than you, stronger than there. I struggle, like, in a sense of, what are we doing that we thought that that was okay,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's the first thing that comes to mind. Second thing that comes to mind is this notion that investigating is going to make it okay. Like, you're doing something after the fact to,
Mm-hmm.
like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why can't we be at a place when someone makes a dumbass decision that the person is simply fired? And I do, and there's a two sides to this, right? Because teachers have something called tenure, and if you have made it past X amount of years without any write-ups or without any, you're doing your job, basically.
Hmm.
You get what's called tenure, and the union begins to protect tenured teachers in a different way. So very much like law enforcement, teachers as the second largest union in the United States,
Interesting.
very
Huh.
have some sense of protection behind them. So I'm not surprised that they said she was put on administrative leave, because
Mm-hmm.
that's code for she gonna still get paid, and we just taking her out of the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's be very clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
Thirdly, I would say that there needs to be some conversations within the dynamic of young people being able to be given the tools to advocate on behalf of one another, because I
Mm-hmm.
know that somebody else in that classroom had to have felt that this is wrong. And the way that this played out from the information that has been shared publicly, to me, just is like, you're shaping the minds of young people to become adults who hate Black people.
To
And
hate, and the mother said that the child that suffers from dwarfism and
right,
he has migraines. So I'm almost thinking like, damn, the teacher should be the first one keen to all of these different things and use this when you're dealing with a child. You see what I'm
right,
saying? Because what you just mentioned, the tenure thing, I wasn't aware of that, because I've seen situations even at my son's school where a
right.
substitute teacher or maybe a new teacher, they come down a little bit harsher. You see what I'm
Yes,
saying? But if you've been there and you have a proven track record, you may be able to stay. But the bottom line is, we are sending our children to these schools.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you send your kid to school for 8 hours a day. In some instances, your child is around teachers more than they're around you. So we're
yeah,
entrusting these individuals with the lives of our students. That's why when I found out about your business, Ascribe Educational Consulting, everybody,
yeah,
when I found out about your business, I seen the importance of, wait a minute, the educational system, America, has blind spots when it comes to Black folks. Sometimes you need somebody to come in and teach you the ropes, teach you where the blind spots may be. You know what I mean? Because this student, like the mom of this student, I would take my kid out of this school. You wouldn't be able to go to this school no more. This is
absolutely.
like, so the teacher has to lose her job. I think
Yeah,
certain positions, teachers, firefighters, police officers, people who deal in the funeral industry, there's jobs that ain't really jobs like that.
right,
Like,
right,
this is a lifestyle. This is the mentality. You are shaping the mind of young people. You are being involved with people at their most vulnerable. It's time. You see what I'm saying?
yep,
So this is unfortunate, and hopefully this teacher or this mother takes her kid out of this school, like
absolutely.
sees to it that this teacher not only get fired, get some training, something, because like you just mentioned, how is this? Because I don't know if it's a white teacher or what the race of the teacher is. I don't know. But let's say it's a white teacher. How is he going to view white people after this? Like we get a bad rap sometimes when we have this benign idea of white people, but a lot of people don't realize it's based on our experiences. I remember being 9 or 10 years old, like 12. Me and my friend was walking home and we had to stop in like this little restaurant to get some water. We walking hella miles. We didn't realize how long it was. We was tired. We kids. We go in a restaurant and say, can we get some water? She said, we don't got water.
Wow.
We 12. We looked at each other like, I don't got water. You see what I'm saying? And we walking and got to telling our moms, and they was like, no, baby, they did that to you because you was black.
Right.
And we was dumbfounded. Like, wait, I'm a child though. Right. You see what I'm saying? So at some point, the parents in all of these situations are gonna have to do the best they can to protect our babies. That's why I don't want a young child to have his first experience with racism, like his first understanding of it, being in a situation like this, opposed to a parent figuring out a way to let them know, baby, some things may be different for you because of how you look. Let me educate you.
Yeah.
We don't want to preach hating anybody. Right. But I don't want kids to internalize this type of behavior. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And so let me give a couple of tips, parents and educators out there that are, listening and engaged about this topic. My mom was very intentional about picking schools that did not have a lot of us. You
told me that. Yeah.
Yes. And so her idea was, because she grew up in inner city Chicago, and it was very segregated. She was forced to go to school with majority black folks until she got into high school. Her junior year of high school, I believe, she was eventually, because her grades were good, she was bussed over to a white school. And the moment, now mind you, this is her junior year. By her senior year, because black folks was bussed in that first year, the next year that school flipped, because the white folks said, we out of here. You bringing in these black kids, we out of here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom saw that and was like, okay, first off, we were segregated from kindergarten to getting high school. Then they said, I'm smart enough to be around the white schools to send me to a white school that's better. We get there, and now y'all running from us now that we there. Okay, got you. So you don't want us to get us a quality education when it's just us. But then when we come in, we show and prove what our talent and skills are. You run from us and make it an even worse situation. And so she was very intentional about making sure that at our primary levels that we went to primarily white institutions.
Wait, and so you think she did this just to get you used to the environment, used to being around?
Two reasons. One, she wanted us to be able to compete at any level, because she felt like if we can handle racism and being, put in predicaments where you ain't gonna be heard, you ain't gonna be seen, and you still excel, you're gonna be good anywhere, right? That was reason number one. Reason number two was she wanted us to be in the better schools. She saw that the resources, when she got to that white school, she was like, oh, they got brand new books. Oh, the facilities is this. Oh, they got a swimming pool. They got this, they got that. The classroom sizes were smaller. All of those things were a part of her coming up with this thing that this is better resources where my babies can thrive better. And so it was an issue of, I want y'all to be able to compete with them and get what you need out of life. Right?
And this is all true, because I have 5 children. Only one of my children has been able to go to private school, and it's night and day.
Night and day.
How they approach education, how they approach resources. Resources that's not even really a question if we got books. Yeah, we got books, we got computers, we got a 20-room class, not 35. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And sometimes as black folks, we get into a thing where I ain't sending my folks, or I ain't sending my kid around them white people. I ain't sending, but Negro, the whole world's white. I'm sorry to tell you, most of the rooms you walk into, I'm happy when I can go to an all black place or all black venue. Most times it's a lot of white folks. If you don't know how to conduct yourself, and really sometimes it gets you in touch with your blackness right away.
right away.
It gets you in touch with your blackness right away, because we'll go to a black school where it's only us.
Yeah,
But we don't know the dynamics of the racism part. It's
absolutely.
Negroes there, niggas over there. We all over the place. Sometimes you go into an environment where it's not you, and you say, "Wait a minute, they treat me like a token. It's just me. They talking racist stuff to me because it's a whole bunch of them." It really makes you tougher, but we have to be careful though, because the parent has to be understanding of our history too, because this is how we create what black folks call coons, you see, because you will be in that environment, you think I'm just like him, and your parent, you come home and say, "Hey, they call me a nigger," or they parent like, "Nah, no, don't worry about it," which is the worst thing a parent can do. So we have to be careful, but these environments do have more resources for whatever reason. And I'm gonna say something real quick. I'm not gonna say the name of my son's school for the sake of what I'm about to say, but this bothered me for a minute. So they had during Christmas or holidays, they said, "Everybody bring in canned foods. We're gonna give it to the needy." Right. I'm like, okay, the needy. I dig it. Go to Walmart. Me go to Walmart or whatever, you know what I mean? Winco, get you like 5 cans. Then when I dropped off the cans, Sonia, it showed the name of the school they was giving the cans to. Guess what it said? Edward Kimball.
Wow.
Gady Middle.
Wow.
My heart dropped. I'm like, oh, they giving to us.
Yeah.
They giving to us. You see what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, that's cool, but to me, that's also creating a mentality from the kids, like kids at this school need help.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And
right.
I had to tell my son, that's a school in the neighborhood I grew up in. Understand how privileged you are. Understand the game they playing, because I would think the people putting this on may be genuine in nature.
Right.
But this is a slap in the face to me almost.
Absolutely.
I can just go bring them canned foods. Y'all putting them in the basket of needy. This is interesting stuff that parents need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So when parents are choosing schools, you like choosing a place to live, figure out who are in positions of leadership on those school campuses and ask some very clear questions about. And it doesn't have to be like, I'm very blatant about my questioning. When I want to know, what's your suspension rate for Black boys but I can do that because I have a background in education.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't advise going in with that tough of a question, right? But I would ask questions about, how do you celebrate, diversity here at your school? I would ask questions about when are books and curriculum adopted? Do we take into consideration the diversity of the world? I would ask questions. I would remind my child on a regular basis, and I'll use this as an example. My now senior in high school, when he was in the 4th grade, they had to do a project on California history, something. And so the teacher sent home, oh my God, this teacher loved my child, like loved my child, and was like, I couldn't wait to get him, because I had heard, this is what he told me. He said, the first couple of weeks of school, he said, I had heard about the Lewis kids, but I had never gotten a Lewis kid. And he's the 4th one here, and I wanted me a Lewis kid. For some reason, they just have this thing about themselves. And telling me and my husband, you all have done an excellent job with, preparing your kids for school. And so he sent home a list of potential people to study for this project. And I looked at the list because, I got a degree in history, and I'm going to use my skills to the advantage of my children. And I said, well, shoot, Mr. I'm not going to say his name because I love him to death. I emailed him and I said, there are no Black people on this list. There are no women on this list. And I don't want to do the work for you, but I know a little bit about California history, that I'm going to give my child the option of 5 other people to choose from. And so we ended up doing his project on the Buffalo. He ended up, I shouldn't say we, but you know how we are at home. We're going to make sure they show up on point.
Yeah.
So he did his project on the Buffalo Soldiers. And one of our friends in community, the daycare he went to, was a Buffalo Soldier motorcycle member crew, right? And so they kind of always go in community and they teach about the Buffalo Soldiers and the history here in California. And so we got him, we emulated their little uniform. He had the little yellow scarf around his neck. We got the little hat. We ready. And he gonna tell this. His teacher said, I learned more from his presentation than I didn't learn this in college. And that's a disadvantage when folks are leaving institutions of higher education and you don't have the basic history to be able to go in and then become a teacher and teach this to young people.
Yeah.
And that's, these are just little tips.
Yeah. And I'm learning, Sonia, from talking to you, that a teacher gets a specialized training. You may think your history teacher knows all about your history, all the details of what happened to Black folks. No, you think they taught it to them if they ain't teaching it to you?
Right.
No. You see what I'm saying? So your kids are lucky to have you, because I'm sure being a teacher, when you approach things the way you approach it, they also say, oh, gotta treat this one good. See, parents, know this. If you're not involved in school at all, maybe you're busy, maybe you got a lot going on. I feel you. I've been there. But you know when they begin to treat your kid really fairly? When your ass show up.
You show up.
When you show up with your Black skin and your, you show up and say, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah. I never was a member of the PTA. I have at the high school level been a part of the booster club because I want equity when it comes. My kids play sports. I need all the sports to get all the same amount of money. Don't be giving all the money to the baseball team, which is, highly unmelanated. In my district, at least. But I did participate in those kind of positions, but I go on field trips. I commit to these things. And we don't miss a parent teacher conference. I tell the school, if you let my child fly under the radar, I got a problem with you. So you can't tell me 6 months into the school year that you've been having this issue all school year long when you got my phone number, my email, and my address. I have a problem when teachers are afraid to approach Black parents. And so one of my key tips that I tell parents, I do parent universities with several of the districts here in Sacramento County. And I say at the beginning of every school year, email your kids' teachers what your expectations of them when it comes to dealing with your child. So for me, that email looks a lot like, hello, my name is Sonia Lewis. Don't call me. You can text me. Don't email me because I'm not checking these emails because I don't have time. And he is child number 6 of, child number 1 of 6, right? My kids do not have to say I put this in the first email so that I set the tone. My kids do not have to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Do not make them stand up if they don't want to stand up. There is no pressure here. This is what my introduction email sounds like. And so if there are things that are important to you about your culture, about what you value at home, make sure that those teachers and educators know that from the get-go, right? What's the best way to get in touch with you? Like I said, you can't go into the 6th month of the school year and I ain't heard from you because I just jammed up my 7th graders counselor and a couple of his teachers. You mean to tell me he didn't go through 2 terms and the counselor ain't gave me a call and he didn't have a couple of F's each term? You're not concerned about my child's education because his behavior is not so bad that y'all call me on behavior issues, right? But you can't call me on academic issues. I got a problem.
That's important, Sonia. That's parents. Black, listen, man. So the incident we talking about is a 10-year-old boy who suffers from dwarfism. His teacher tied him to a chair. His mom is outraged, right? And we gonna hold these teachers accountable. Like you spending all this time with my child. We understand that most school teachers, like 80-something% white, middle-aged white women who don't come from the community they teach in. Right. But that's from the teacher's perspective. From a parent's perspective, I'm talking to myself now too. We got to get more involved. Yes. You got to find out, because you could be in there with your kid, making sure he do his homework, talking to him about his class, talking to him about his environment. This is good. But you got to talk to the teacher. You got to talk to the person standing in front of your teacher, giving them a lesson. And really, the email she was talking about, what that's saying is, I'm watching you.
I'm watching you. I'm watching you.
And I know certain classrooms, teachers, I can only imagine having 28 personalities to deal with every day.
Absolutely. It's something that you have to, really be astute about. But on the flip side of that is, as I'm being very intentional about, I'm watching you and letting you know that I want you to value my child too. And parents, I mean, here's the other part of it. We don't have to know how to do their homework to support them in doing their homework. Like, I don't know this new math and I'm not going to play with you. I be like, no, baby, this is how you divide. I don't know what that is. And I'm not about to learn 4th grade all over again. I tell I'm very frank with my kids. I am not about to learn 2nd grade math. I passed the 2nd grade a lot of years ago, not doing it. But ask me to help you, write in cursive. I can show you.
And then teachers, tutors, you can get all these people to step in and help, because I see a lot of stuff on. That's funny you say that. I see memes online sometimes where you will have a kid bringing home a 3rd grade math and the mom and dad like, I don't know what the fuck.
I don't know what that is. Why y'all got 100 steps to do a multiplication project? I mean, okay, it's 5 times 5. There, 5, 10, 15. Like we do it. Oh my God!
And you have to be diligent and know if your kid is struggling in school, they're having these problems. Yeah, we have our problems with the system, but engage as much as you can, Sonia. And it seems like almost society sets it up where it's hard for you, because I know parents. Look, you working 10 hours a day. Pops work the late shift.
Yes.
So he working at night. You're only seeing your kid in passing. I've seen this kind of shit, and it ain't even a neglectful parent.
No.
These lights got to stay on.
Absolutely.
What I'm supposed to do. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's important.
That's the thing that I think that we struggle with, making sure that things look good on the outside, because they go into schools where other kids, it look really, really good on the outside. My kids would come home and be like, well, mama, such and such got these shoes. I'd be like, well, tell such and such's mama to buy you some too. And each one of my children at least will say, well, I didn't have it as hard as my older sibling, because as you mature as a parent, as an adult, you might be able to provide more as you do this thing better, you might be in a better financial situation. My older kids, they try to hold my husband and I to the wire and be like, y'all brand new, y'all act brand new, because these little boys don't get no whoopings, they getting tablet. I'd be like, they didn't have tablets when you were in elementary. Like comparing apples and oranges. Cell phones just had come out, and I barely had a cell phone, so I'm not giving. What are we talking about? But yeah, they internalize those kind of things. So we have to help them be able to process what it's like to go into spaces where you might not have everything that everybody else is showing up.
And parents, I'm always being transparent. I'm never gonna step in front of people and lie to them. I sometimes I get busy. I'm like, you know what? Let me tap in with my kid's teacher, because it's easier now. They got the whole email thing, and they got the grades posted on the email. You can go in there, check it. You can send the teacher an email. I'm like, okay, let me get more involved, because sometimes my sons, they've always been good talkers.
Yes.
Just like me, you know what I mean? But they tell me some shit. I'm like, okay, that sounds good.
That sound good.
That sounds good. Report card. I see a big ass F. I said, wait a minute. You've been in the library 4 times this week. You still got this grade? So I'm like, okay, not his fault. Let me step in more. Let me show up at the library. Let me just show up at the school. You see what I'm saying? Because Sonia, one time I had an incident in my school where, and I say this a lot, and this tested my spirit, because I do what I do for a living. You see what I'm saying? So a teacher told my son, he walked in a substitute. He walked into class with a hood on.
Yeah.
He said, take that hood off. You're not in the hood. I was walking into work when he called me. I started shaking. I got back in my car like, oh my God, I'm going up there right now. For me, it was like, okay, y'all didn't play with the wrong one. Thankfully, the teacher or the principal was a brother.
You're right.
And I went in there and I said, man, something needs to happen.
Right.
I'm not leaving
until
she's fired or something takes place. And me knowing who I know, because I've interviewed a lot of people and I've showed up for a lot of people,
Right.
not because I want nothing from them.
Right.
This is just what's in my heart. But I got a little Rolodex here. I can get the news at your school now.
In a minute.
I can have them protesting outside of your school now. That's
Right.
what I'm thinking. Like, oh, this my a part of me, Sonia, was saying, oh, this is my moment.
Absolutely.
This my protest moment. But
Right.
he did the right thing, fired the substitute. Now I'm talking to you. I know that was easier to do. Right, Sonia? If she was tenured.
Absolutely. It would have been harder.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So shout out to this family, 10-year-old boy taped to a chair. Please do not become a teacher if you don't want to learn how to exercise patience.
Yes.
If you haven't done so already, because you're leaving a lasting impression on these children. You feel me?
Absolutely.
All right. So next in final story, Sonia, in where is this? Jefferson. No, I'm sorry. Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yes.
A black woman goes into a car dealership, test drives a Honda or something like that. I think the black woman asked them, can I get a break on the price? You know how when you buy in a car, you like to negotiate a little bit, throw some prices out there, see if they're going to bite. So the sister tries to negotiate for the car. Turns out she doesn't end up buying the car from this car dealership, Sonia, but she left her, and this is in Kenosha, Wisconsin, is where the car dealership is. NH Auto Sales, LLC. NH Auto Sales, LLC. In Kenosha, Wisconsin. She left her ID there, and these bastards peed on her ID while filming it. You see what I'm saying? So, Sonia, when we looking at these type of situations, I'm thinking, I'm watching this like this some sick white boy shit, man. What are y'all gonna pee on her ID for? And they said while they were peeing on it, they said, you gonna talk to us like that? So I'm thinking, okay, well, the sister in there talking shit to him or being disruptive, but she mentioned, hey, I was just trying to bargain.
Right.
I was just trying to get the best deal. So, Sonia, how should we process situations like this when we see them happen?
You know, a part of me, because, you know, we hood kids, and I'm doing like that on purpose, right? A part of me is like, I'm going to go get Pookie in them. But I also know that's not the solution. At the end of the day, she has, this is a racially motivated situation where someone is butthurt that a black person, challenged what they were doing and the purchase of the car. But two, which probably stung even more to them, is that she chose not to buy the car from them anyway. Right? Because that's going to impact their bottom line. And if you know anything about sales, it's like, that's what I got to do. I got to get this sale. But so my first move would just be, I'm heading to an attorney. And we need to have a conversation about how we deal with, you know, these kind of situations. But then I'm also heading to my city council. I'm heading to the chambers, the business chambers. I want this. I don't believe in cancel culture when it comes to us canceling us. I'm gonna put you over there in, you know, the ice box, in the freezer if I have to, and unthaw you when if it feels maybe appropriate that some lessons have been learned. But when we're talking about systems that traditionally, historically, structurally, know that they can get away with doing some foul ass shit like this to us. We have to have conversations in community that puts these kind of businesses on blast. So I would have gone to the city council and like very similar to the baby girl who was fighting those little bugs in the trees. And her
lanternflies,
that city council meeting. And I would say this is trauma. For a person like myself who has generational trauma that I live with because of this country, right? And so we have to begin to put these people on notice. And then going to, like I said, the business chambers, making Yelp report. We don't sometimes, and this is labor. right? And that's the bad part about it. In order to prove our point, we got to put in some labor, some sweat equity to prove that these people are racist and just foul and wrong across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But if we are going to impact somebody's bottom line, we have to put them on blast. And so I'm not mad that this video is circulating. I'm not mad that now we know the name of this this little auto sales business, because people from all over the country can then bombard their lines. I mean, I'm that petty. I'm that petty. I got a social media following, and I know other people with social media followings, and I'm gonna put a poster together, a flyer together, something about this auto business.
Put them on blast. Put them on blast. Because this brother's name, this white man's name, Brian Slavin, like ideal name for this type of situation. But throughout, this is because we like social media and all the things that come with it. Sometimes there are negativity, but Black folks, be aware, a lot of incidents involving Black murder, Black injustice, social media got that shit popping. Regular people, not political pundits, not news reporters, regular people said, no, here's his face, here's his address. This is what we faced with. You see what I'm saying? Because this auto dealership don't even got a license. Look at the white privilege, Sonia. They don't even operating with a license, and they felt comfortable enough to not just piss on a woman's ID, but you videotaped it, you sick bastard.
Right?
She should go to a lawyer, and we need to, nobody Black should ever support this business. Sometimes we gotta economically strangle motherfuckers.
Yes.
Like they try to do us. You see what I'm saying? So yeah,
absolutely. It reminds me of that young lady several years ago who went into a Waffle House in Georgia, and she paid for her food. She went back in and said, "Can I get some straws and napkins?" And literally, they told her she was a disturbance. Called the police on her. The police believed them, and she paid for her food. And she had, she was coming from the club, so she had a little dress on. They yanked her where her breasts were exposed. That's what it reminds me when you're talking about you're willing to urinate on someone's driver's license, like the sickness of that, right? It just is, it's so foul in the way that they degrade. They think that that's okay. Last week when we were together, I mentioned, Ahmaud Arbery, because those three sick fuckers they hunted him.
Yes.
For jogging in their neighborhood.
Yes.
And so this is the reality, is that while we are trying to survive the trauma that our past generations have had to deal with, we are also dealing with current day traumas, because the system refuses to change. And the only way for this system to change is for us to be challenged. And I say, revolution is love. But the definition of revolution is change. And if you want to speak of changing this shit, we got to be revolutionaries.
We got to be revolutionary, and we can't let our feet off the gas. And I'm never going to get tired of talking about our issues. This shit can turn into a sports show overnight. Stop all the racism. Stop it. Leave us alone. I have 5 kids. I got 6 grandkids. This is 11 people who depend on me. I can't have 20, 45. My grandkids still worried about police brutality. Still worried about going. I'm taking it upon myself to say, let me do what I can to make my people aware. Because in reality, if we was on code all over the place, we can stop a lot of this shit. But a lot of us be like, I'm working hard. I worked hard. You should work hard. I'm in a new neighborhood now. It's not that bad. I got a couple white friends. It's not about none of that. People I love constantly tell me, well, I like your show, but maybe you need to lay off white folks. I'm like, okay, you live in a community that was redlined 45 years ago. I know your pops, he was on crack cocaine provided by the government. Now, individual choice, accountability, yes, that's always a thing. But our community was attacked, man. Everybody doesn't have the wherewithal to be attacked and maneuver around it. They want to point to LeBron, point to another celebrity. Yeah, some people have a skill, a talent, a mindset that says, okay, I see this shit is foul. I'm a maneuver. Most people gonna fall into something. You know what I mean, Sonia?
Yes. And so I always say when we hear about things like this as well, again, thinking outside of the box, our economic dollar represents what represents in number would put us as the 8th largest economy in the world. And I share that with people all the time because you don't realize how much of a flex Black folks are. Like for real, we can flex all over this world. We can, if we left America,
come on now.
You know, Marcus Garvey was talking about that back in the early 1900s. But for real, when we talk about the flex, like we live in California, which is the 4th largest economy in the world. I say these things that California can really and truly be a trailblazer when we're talking about the economy of one, Black folks doing things differently. But we have a California Black Chamber, we have a Sacramento Black Chamber, we have all over the state's city Black chambers. I think that it's important for us to begin to have conversations about what would the economic structure look like in any given city or at the state level, right? So that we have in every industry we're represented. So that when we want to go buy a car, I have the option to go to a Black dealer, right? That can be my first. I got a choice of who my dollars are going to go to and where I spend my money. And if I decide to go to N&H auto sales and do business outside of my community, at least I'm aware that there's a Black auto dealer within my community. There's a Black grocer in my community. There's a Black pharmacist in my community. All of the Black doctors and dentists and whoever. I'm on Sacramento Sister Circle constantly, and one of the questions that comes up is, who can tell who's a good Black pediatrician in the Sacramento area? And all these sisters from all over Sacramento chiming in and be like, my kids go here, my kids, because we've created a circle where we want to protect and mitigate as much trauma as we can in living and trying to survive and thrive in this life that we're trying to.
And that's why people like Black people, when you experience a harsh bout of racism when trying to spend money,
right?
Because that's what this sister, she's not asking for a handout. She ain't no bum or homeless. She's saying, hey, I'm about to spend money. Let's bargain like America has taught us to do.
Right.
When you find yourself in situations where they don't want you there, be frustrated. Fight it as much as you can. But then go try to find somebody that look like you.
Right.
That do the same thing. We ain't got to be emotional about the shit all the time. Now, of course,
I've been this way for a long time. When I go to, if I feel forced to go to a major car dealership, I go there with the intention. I'd be like, where the Black salesperson at? I'm gonna just be honest. I don't want to deal with you. Show me a Black salesperson. And even if that person is a hook and a crook, I still would rather do business with them. I'm just being honest. You know, because we can talk away to each other where you gonna understand, and I'm not here to play a game, and we might, can do each other some business, but I'm not going to mush my words and mess around with my ability to flex my dollars how I choose to.
Yeah, and we got to start trusting one another and understanding that now sometimes I'll need a Black business and it may be hard to find.
Right.
Sometimes I deal with my brothers and they don't do good business, but I'm historical with it. I'm like, okay, I'll give you a couple passes because I know that some of us ain't never had to do business. Some of us is steady doing nigga business. Okay, stop doing that. I'll tell you what I can. I'm not going to do a Yelp review. I'm not going to talk shit about you to nobody, but I'm going to come to you and tell you what I didn't like. We need to get better at doing this, like being expressive. The money you spend is important. So hopefully these bastards get shut down. Any new developments I find out about this, I'm posting it. I'm talking about it. We can't just let this go, because what happens is if we let that go where these white devils piss on this woman's ID, what happens when the next Black woman walk in, but she ain't hear about what happened to the other one?
Absolutely.
You don't spend your money there. You know what I mean?
We have to be each other's keeper. Like at the end of the day,
each other's keeper, and when I talk about these stories, I don't care what part of the country in. You my brother, you my sister. I don't need it to come to my front door for me to know how serious it is. Some
Right.
Black folks think about the incidents that be happening with us is over there. It's because they was resisting. It's because they was doing
Right.
this. And then when something happened to your ass or your kid, now you on the news crying, talking about you want Justin Ware's Al Sharpton in them.
Right.
Don't come on now. You don't need to get to that point. How about you just
No.
treat your people like that anyways? You feel me? So another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. My sister
Yay.
Sonia, thank you very much. Like I said, man, it was today. This is the Thursday show, y'all.
Just don't mind
Typically,
it.
we do it on Thursday, but life be life, and you know what I mean. My sister Sonia had to take care of some shit, but normally we come to you Tuesday, Thursdays, 7 p.m. The Melanated Convo podcast. Let's talk about our issues until they're no longer.
Yeah.
Until we're unified to a point, until we see a significant amount of change, and that's not happening fast enough for me. But if you're Black, I know you work hard. I know you got a job. I know you got a family. I know you got kids.
Right.
But you got to care about your people, man. You got to invest in your people. Sometimes it could be supporting them financially. Sometimes it's just sweat equity, like my sister Sonia said earlier. Just care. Show up to the events. You know, somebody Black selling something, give them all the money they're asking for. If it's $45, give them
Don't
40.
try to get that, you my brother, you my sister. Can I get a deal?
Give them, if it's 45, I would say give them 45, 50.
Right.
You feel me? Give them a little extra because it's going to be harder for them.
Right.
The hookup, there's no hookups in the adult world. When you go to Macy's, you're not asking for a hookup. White folks tell you a price, you shoot them the money. You don't even think about asking for a hookup. We got to, and that's slightly disrespectful. You disrespecting you and me without you even knowing it.
Absolutely. And I hear this thing in community all the time amongst us. Right? When you have that one bad experience because you went to a Black business, here's the reality, people. Black businesses start off with handicaps, just like we all start off with handicaps living in this world. And the handicaps are, I might be like, I've been in business since 2009. When I started in business, I was getting a lot of traction. And it got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not forgetting what my clients need, but I'm letting myself run down because the night before that, I was working with another client. And so I'm not prepared. And so I might have done an all-nighter and I got there and I don't look my best, right? And that might have been perceived a certain kind of way, as maybe Sonia wasn't prepared for today's presentation because she wasn't her normal bubbly, self. Trust that having a conversation with a Black business owner about your expectation as a customer, but two, how can you help them be successful? Like, that's a legitimate thing, because oftentimes we are solo entrepreneurs out there doing everything for that business all by ourselves. So you not only the secretary, the accountant, the bookkeeper, the janitor, you everything to that business.
Yep.
And so and use a service industry, for example, if I'm sorry, not a service, a tangible item that you're selling, and a person comes to you and say, can you have this product to me by Thursday? I really need this product to you. I need it by Thursday. And that person says, I got so many orders. Can I please have one more day? Give them a little bit of grace. I mean, if you really can be okay with getting it the next day, allow them. But have conversations with Black business owners about what it means for us as a community to support them being successful. When Black businesses are successful, it sets the stage for our children to be successful. It sets the stage that our dollars matter in any given community. It sets the stage for how the business world deals with us. Because when I go to apply for a license and they don't tell me all the stuff that I need, and then I look like I'm half-ass set up, it sets me up for failure. So we need to be having conversations about what it means to be, how can I support you in being successful?
How can I support you and give people a little grace? You said something that was golden a few minutes ago, Sonia. I know people who go into supporting the Black business very weary, like, oh, I'm gonna give these niggas my money. And once you give them your money, something may happen.
Right.
Something late. Your food don't taste as good as you thought. And you say, see, this is why I don't support Black business. But I've seen your ass in the Asian liquor store.
Right.
And they had a wall up. They had a big ass metal plate up. They talking to you like shit, but you love the fries. But you love the food. You ain't never saying, oh, these Asians, I ain't never coming back here. You see? Right. So this self-hate that we distribute to each other, give each other grace. Understand that a lot of us is first generation business owners. Our parents, grandparents, great grandparents, they had their head down just working hard based on the country that we live in. Yeah. So you got to replace hate. You got to replace all these feelings we have for each other. We're so skeptical of one another.
That's part of the conditioning. Like, know that's part of, we've been conditioned not to trust us.
Yeah.
The system doesn't want us to trust us. And the minute that we trust us, they come at us as a collective. And it's harder for them to come at us as a collective. Because I'm telling you, Pookie and them, they got the perimeter surrounded and they not coming into. I'm thinking about really and truly about the group. It's a group of folks in Georgia who bought up like all this land together and they gonna develop it. So that it can be an all Black town. Like, that's a flex.
Yeah, like, it is.
We could do that all over this country and replicate that shit.
Yep. But we got to believe in each other, everybody. So thank you very much for tuning into another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. Like the show, subscribe to the show, tell your mama and them about it. You know what I mean? Tell your friends about it. Everybody need to be aware of their history. Yeah, you can go to other places and you can get some jokes. You can laugh. You can do all these different things. There's millions of platforms with all type of information. But here, we're going to talk about Black folks. Yeah. We're going to talk about empowerment, which all of us need. You feel me? If you're on one of the digital platforms, leave a comment like you guys have been doing. Talk to me about the show. Talk to me about the advertisements. Talk to me about everything that we got going on, but we're not going to stop, man. So, Sonia, tell everybody where they can find you.
Find me at my website. You know, we have a free little chit chat thing that you can do on my website at ascribesuccess.com. And we answer questions. We, just do quick little discovery calls just so that you know where you might be and get an assessment of how we can potentially help.
And if you work for a company and you're close to the manager, you know the big wigs, and you see some racist shit going on, don't get mad. Be like, hey, hey guys,
I know somebody.
I know a company that may be able to help you guys.
Right.
Let me give you a number, and Sonia come in and do the rest. You know what I mean? You ain't even got to get into it like that. She gonna do it for you, everybody. So thank you very much for tuning into another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. I'm your brother Harrison, Sonia William Lewis. We out of here.